Hi everyone, today we're going to do lesson 6.3 and this lesson is all about completing the worksheet and finding errors on a worksheet. So our objectives for today are to prepare the balance sheet and income statement columns of a worksheet, total and rule the worksheet, and apply the steps for finding errors on a worksheet. So at the end of each fiscal period, 2 financial statements should be prepared from the information on the worksheet. These are the the income statement and the balance sheet. So these 2 financial statements are going to be done in chapter 7, but we're using the information that we're doing here in chapter 6 with the worksheet in order to create those financial statements. This is known as the accounting period cycle concept. So this is part of completing the accounting cycle. So what exactly is a balance sheet? Well, the balance sheet is a financial statement that reports the value of a business's assets, liabilities, and owner's equity on a specific date. So if you think about your accounts, it's all of your 100, 200, and 300 accounts, or the assets, liability, and owner's equity accounts. An up-to-date balance sheet, account balances are extended to the balance sheet debit and credit columns. So you're basically taking all of your account balances that you had in your trial balance columns and moving them over to the balance sheet columns. However, you need to update the accounts where you had adjustments. So you would update the account balance for supplies and prepaid insurance. So this is basically everything from cash to drawing over to the balance sheet columns. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy over our debit balances without adjustments. Your debit balances with adjustments are going to be 620 minus 530, and that's going to give us 90. If you think back to lesson 6.2, when it said the amounts that we had remaining, those amounts would be here ultimately. So you have a debit balance, you credit supplies, and so that's going to bring down the amount of supplies to $90. Same thing for prepaid insurance. You're going to take 900 minus 150, that gives you 750. And then your credit balances without adjustments, you just move them right on over. You just copy them over. Now the income statement is a financial statement showing revenue and expenses for the fiscal period. So this is going to involve everything from your revenue all the way down to your last expense. And you're basically going to do the same exact thing. Copy over the balances from the trial balance columns, just as you did before, while taking into consideration the adjustments and updating those adjustments for supplies expense and insurance expense. So I'm going to move sales over to the income statement column, so credit. Then you're going to move all of your expense balances without adjustments. You're copying them exactly as they are. Then the expense balances with adjustments. So I know insurance expense and supplies expense are blank right now. You're just going to imagine that there are zeros here. So debit and a debit you add. So 0 plus 150 equals 150. And double check once you're done extending everything. The only thing that's going to be in this credit column is going to be sales. Okay, and you're moving everything from income summary down into income statement. Our next step is to figure out if there is a net income or a net loss. So basically what you're going to do is take your sales minus each one of your expenses. If it's positive, it's a net income. If it's negative, it's a net loss. So you can see here, we're going to total our totals at the bottom here. And if your sales are bigger, sales right here, total of sales are bigger than this total of expenses, then there's a net income. So what you're going to do is rule the single line, put the totals, and there's a net income. So if there's a net income, you would put the amount under your expenses so that when you bring down $5,820 and you add these two amounts, it equals $580. $5,820. You're then going to move that amount over to the other side as well, and then you're going to add those. So ultimately what you're going to do, just to review, is sales minus expenses. It's positive. When it's positive, you put it under the expenses. You add $2,658 plus $3,162 gives us $5,820. Bring this amount down. These two should match. You extend the net income all the way over to the balance sheet credit column. Add these two amounts, bring it down, $5,387. Bring this amount down, and they should match as well. Now, if there's a net loss, you're going to do the same thing, but it's slightly different. The net loss, sales minus your expenses, it's negative 300. So you would put the 300 under the credit column instead. So 2,100 plus 300 equals 2,400. 2,400, they match. And then, instead of extending this amount to the credit column, you're now doing it to the debit column. And you would add these two. So I like to think net income, you do the outsides. Net loss, you do the insides. So net loss, do the insides. Now, after you've completed the worksheet, you need to look at the worksheet to just make sure that no errors have been have happened. So several different kinds of errors may be made when preparing a worksheet. 3 examples are: there may be errors in the accounting records, there may be errors in calculations, and an amount may be entered into the wrong column. So one way you can check for errors is when the two column totals are not in balance, subtract the smaller total from the larger total to find the difference. You could check the difference between the two amounts against the following guidelines. So if there's a difference of 1, like a penny, 10 cents, $1, or $10, it could mean an addition error or a wrong keystroke. If the difference can be evenly divided by 2, look for the half of that amount. The difference can be divided evenly by 9. Look for a slide or transpose numbers. And what a slide is when you move your numbers to the right or to the left. So for example, like $50 was written like $500, or vice versa. Transpose numbers are when numbers are flipped. So example 54 is written at a 45. The difference is an omitted amount, so look for an amount equal to the difference. Check for errors in the trial balance column. Have all general ledger account balances been copied from the ledger to the trial balance properly? And have they been recorded in the correct column, whether it be debit or credit? In the adjustment columns, make sure the debits equal the credits for each of the adjustments and use the small letters that label each part of the adjustment to help check your accuracy. And is the amount for each adjustment correct? And then when checking in the income statement and balance sheet columns, just double check to make sure that each amount has been copied correctly when it was extended. Check to make sure that each account balance has been extended to the correct column, whether it be the income statement or the balance sheet column. Make sure you've calculated your net income or net loss correctly. And then also make sure that the net income or net loss was recorded in the correct income statement or balance sheet columns.